They thought they could break you with words, didn't they? Whispered in the dark, cast like stones disguised as sentences, said with a smile, but carrying poison, but chosen one. What they didn't realize is this: when you are divinely marked, when you carry a mission from the Most High, every word spoken against you becomes a seed sown into a field they cannot control. And those seeds, they're growing now into vines that are wrapping around their own tongues. You felt it, didn't you? That sting when your name came up in rooms you'd never entered. When people you loved repeated things they swore they'd never say. The strange shift in energy when you walked into a space and the silence was louder than any noise. You weren't imagining it. There were curses flying in your direction, not always shouted, sometimes soft, sometimes wrapped in fake concern or shallow praise. But behind it, intention, malice, envy, resentment, and that ancient jealousy that always awakens when light stands too close to darkness. But here's what they don't understand. You were born with spiritual armor, not made of metal, but of essence, divine essence, the kind that turns every spoken curse into a boomerang. See, in the natural world, words can seem harmless, fleeting, gone with the wind. But in the spiritual realm, words are energy. They are commands. They are weapons. And they carry the frequency of the heart they come from. When a heart is filled with bitterness, its words don't just float, they infect. And when they target someone chosen by God, those words ignite laws far beyond human understanding. You were chosen for reasons they can't comprehend. It wasn't your looks, your status, or even your voice. It was your frequency, your alignment, your resilience. You carry heaven's signature in your soul. And for those still trapped in ego or shadow, that presence is unbearable. So they did the only thing they knew how to do: attack what they couldn't destroy, speak against what they couldn't become, curse what they didn't understand. Maybe you didn't retaliate. Maybe you kept quiet, walked away, cried in private. But every tear collected, every sigh noted, every false word recorded by the realm where nothing is missed. You see, God didn't stop their mouths because he wanted to expose their hearts. And now, the exposure has begun. The words they spoke are now echoing back louder, clearer, undeniable. And what once was whispered is now a scream in their own minds. There's a divine principle at play here. Something ancient. Something sacred. What's spoken against the righteous returns sevenfold. It's not vengeance, it's alignment. It's not punishment, it's reflection. And the mirror is now facing them. All the accusations, all the gossip, all the curses, they're tasting what they served. And it's bitter, hard to swallow. That's why they're choking. Not on your energy, but on their own. You may have wondered why your journey included so much misunderstanding, why even your silence was misread, why your kindness was twisted, why your name traveled further than your truth. It wasn't by accident. It was orchestration. Heaven allowed it so that when you rise, and oh yes, you will rise, no one can say it was luck. Your elevation will carry the fingerprints of endurance, of grace, of divine vindication. The power of their words never defined you, it revealed them. And while they thought they were tearing you down, what they were really doing was building the stage for your revelation. Every false story they told made the truth louder when it arrived. Every attempt to sabotage became the setup for your spotlight. That's why you're still standing. That's why you're still shining. Because no curse from a wounded soul can touch a life protected by heaven. And you know something else. Chosen one. Deep down they knew. They knew your presence carried weight. They knew your spirit disrupted things. They knew you couldn't be controlled. That's what made you dangerous. Not because you attacked, but because you exposed. Just by being. Just by walking in truth. You made their lies uncomfortable. Their masks feel tighter. Their shadows more obvious. So they tried to silence you with words. But now, those very words are returning to sender. They underestimated the law of return. Thought they were throwing stones into a pond. But what they didn't see is that the pond was divine and every ripple leads back to their own shore. And now the water's crashing. The consequences are landing. And what they intended for your harm is becoming the instrument of their awakening or their unraveling. You don't need to seek revenge. You don't need to defend yourself. Your glow is louder than their gossip. Your peace is more powerful than their plots. And your alignment with truth is the very thing making their falsehoods collapse. Let them choke on their own words. Not because you want harm, but because truth has a way of clearing the air. And when it does, only what's real can remain. This is your confirmation. Chosen one. You weren't crazy. You weren't paranoid. They did speak against you. But heaven heard it all. And now, justice is speaking back. They didn't curse just anyone. They cursed the light. And that's what stirred the storm. Chosen one. The reason their mouths opened against you so fiercely has nothing to do with who you were on the surface. It was never about your job, your looks, your family, or your following. It was about the frequency you carry, the light you were born with, the silent authority in your walk. The way your presence alone caused hidden things in people to rise to the surface, things even they didn't know were still buried. You triggered something spiritual in them, something ancient, something raw. And instead of facing it, instead of healing it, they projected it onto you. That's why the ones who seemed closest became the cruelest. Why people you barely knew developed opinions so loud. Why rooms shifted when you entered. Your energy pure, steady, unshaken was like a mirror to their chaos. And no one likes what they see when they haven't made peace with their own reflection. They didn't curse you because you were wrong. They cursed you because you were right. You reflected what they were pretending not to see in themselves. You brought clarity without even speaking. And in a world addicted to illusion, clarity is confrontation. That's why you found yourself at the center of storms you didn't create. That's why silence on your end felt like thunder to their spirit. You were confronting their darkness by simply existing in your light. This is what happens when the chosen step into alignment. You don't have to do much. Your energy begins to speak for you. It shakes things. It awakens things. It breaks agreements in people that were made with lower frequencies. People start to feel exposed around you. Like their masks are slipping, like their secrets aren't safe. And instead of seeking healing, they seek a scapegoat. You became that scapegoat, chosen one, not because you were weak, but because your power was undeniable. And instead of asking how you were rising, they asked how they could tear you down. Let's not forget the first betrayal in history was rooted in jealousy. Cain and Abel, two brothers, One offering accepted, the other not. God's favor revealed something hidden in Cain's heart. And instead of repenting, he chose violence. He chose to silence what reminded him of what he lacked. That same spirit still moves today. You didn't ask for the favor. You didn't boast about your light. But it showed, and that showing made you a target. You see, the chosen don't seek to be seen. They just are. They move differently, think differently, speak differently. There's a weight to your words, a calm to your spirit, a glow that can't be duplicated. And while some are drawn to it in awe, others react in fear. Fear that your light will outshine their shadow. Fear that your purpose will reveal their aimlessness. Fear that your truth will disrupt their comfort. And that fear breeds jealousy. That jealousy grows into resentment. And eventually, resentment spills over into words. Words like venom. Words like daggers. Words spoken behind your back, but aimed straight at your spirit. And every time it happened, you felt it. In your chest, in your gut, in your dreams. You felt it before you heard it. That's how spiritually sensitive you are. You picked up the vibration before the evidence ever showed, but you stayed silent. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You knew you were dealing with spirits, not just people. You discerned that the battle wasn't in the natural, it was in the unseen. And because you chose peace over pettiness, you became even more dangerous. Because your restraint was strength, your silence was strategy. And while they were running their mouths, you were building your altar. Chosen one. Your enemies never understood that your quiet time wasn't isolation, it was incubation. You were being prepared, empowered, covered. Every time they cursed you, heaven blessed you. Every time they doubted you, God confirmed you. Every time they slandered your name, your character outshined their lies, because the truth has a frequency of its own. And no matter how loud the noise, truth doesn't need to scream. It just stands. Now, here's what they didn't account for the consequences. They thought their words would dissipate, forgotten after they were spoken. But the spiritual realm doesn't forget. It stores, it records, and it reflects, like a mirror with memory. And those words, they boomerang. They circle back, but not empty. They return with weight, with multiplied energy, with divine consequence. And the ones who opened their mouths without reverence are now realizing they weren't speaking about you. They were speaking against you. There's a difference. And heaven does not take that lightly. The tables are turning now. Have you noticed the same ones who cursed you are quiet now? The same ones who lied can't look you in the eye. The energy has shifted. The silence is loud. The guilt is heavy. They're not avoiding you. They're avoiding the reflection you carry. Because you didn't fall. You didn't break. You didn't disappear. In fact, you're rising, elevated, anointed, unbothered. And that rise, that's the real rebuke. They're not just choking on their words metaphorically. Some of them are literally watching their own lives reflect the very things they wished on you. Sickness, stagnancy, confusion, isolation. Not because you cursed them, but because they cursed what God had blessed. And that always invites consequence. This is why discernment matters. Why protecting your energy matters. You're not better than anyone, but you are different. You carry something sacred, and not everyone can handle that. Not everyone can celebrate that. Some can only try to destroy what they can't access. But their curses ineffective. Their words powerless against your purpose. Because your life is wrapped in a covenant they didn't write and can't rewrite. You've been misunderstood. Yes. Targeted. Yes. Talked about, most definitely. But you are still here. Still shining, still favored. And that alone is your proof. Proof that no curse can stop a calling. No gossip can block grace. And no tongue, no matter how twisted, can touch what's sealed by the divine. You see, chosen one. What they didn't know or refused to accept is that words are more than just sounds. Words are frequencies, spiritual codes, invisible forces that carry intention and energy into realms seen and unseen. Every curse they spoke over you, every false word, every whisper laced with envy, didn't just vanish into thin air. It landed somewhere. And depending on the intention behind it, it either became a blessing in disguise or a spiritual weapon that returned to its sender with force. The ancient texts have always told us the tongue holds the power of life and death. But it's not just metaphor. It's literal. In the realm of the spirit, words are alive. They move. They echo. They multiply. That's why gossip doesn't just hurt your reputation, it infects the very atmosphere around your name. That's why curses don't just cause emotional pain, and they release actual chains if you're not spiritually protected. And that's also why your silence, your prayers, your affirmations, thus they are not weak responses. They're counterweapons. They are fire in the unseen. When someone curses a chosen one, they are launching an attack into a divine firewall. And when that attack can't land on its intended target because you're wrapped in spiritual authority, soaked in divine favor, it ricochets. It bounces back. And the one who launched it feels the impact tenfold. Not because you fought them, but because God fights for you. They used words to try and bind your destiny, to slow your purpose, to stain your name. But what they didn't know is that the chosen come with a spiritual clause. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you shall be condemned. Not by your hand, not through your retaliation, but by divine law. Heaven handles what's too heavy for you. And haven't you seen it? The ones who spoke the worst of you, where are they now? Their voices, once so loud, have gone eerily quiet. Their energy, once so bold, now flickers like a dying flame. Some are dealing with consequences. They don't even connect to their words. But the spirit realm connects it all. When someone curses a vessel of light, they sign a spiritual contract. And that contract always comes due. You were never meant to carry the weight of their slander. That's why, even when it hurt, even when it made you question yourself, your spirit always whispered, "Hold on, don't respond. Let me handle it." That was God. That was divine restraint. You may have wanted to clap back. You may have rehearsed what you'd say, but something deeper held you in peace. That something was heaven. And it knew your silence would speak louder than their noise ever could. And here's what's wild. The curses didn't crush you. They refined you. They didn't stop you. They sharpened you. Every word they spoke against you became a stepping stone. Every accusation became another layer of armor. Every attempt to tear you down became more proof of your assignment. Because hell doesn't waste energy on the average. It only targets what threatens its illusions. And chosen one, you are a threat. Not because you're loud, but because you're real. Not because you seek attention, but because your presence commands it. Not because you play the game, but because you live in truth. That truth is disruptive. It breaks generational lies. It dissolves masks. It shifts atmospheres. And when people aren't ready to shift, they strike. But remember, this truth always outlives lies. Always. And that's why you don't need to prove anything. The same mouth that mocked you will eventually speak your name with respect or not at all. Because when a chosen one continues to rise, even after being cursed, slandered, misunderstood, and abandoned, it humbles the loudest voices. It silences the proud. It causes the very ones who tried to bury you to realize. They planted a seed by mistake, and now that seed is growing into something they can't contain. Your spiritual sensitivity has been both your gift and your cross. You've felt the weight of words others forgot they even spoke. You've picked up on energy shifts no one else noticed. You've woken up feeling drained, only to realize later someone had your name in their mouth the night before. That's not paranoia. That's perception. You're not imagining things, you're intuiting them. That's what happens when your spirit is tuned to higher frequencies. You don't just hear, you know, and that knowing, it's sacred. It's part of why you were chosen. Because people like you don't just walk through the world, you walk with the world. You feel the undercurrents, the unseen. And that awareness comes with responsibility. You're not called to curse back. You're not called to play their game. You're called to walk in light so undeniable, so radiant, that darkness simply can't follow you where you're going. This is why your spiritual hygiene matters. Your boundaries matter. You've got to be intentional now about who you let close, what you listen to, and where you invest your energy. Not everyone is safe. Not everyone can handle proximity to purpose. And many who can't handle it will try to sabotage it. Not always directly, but with words. And those words matter. So you've got to guard your gates, your ears, your spirit. Speak life over yourself daily. Cancel every word that didn't come from love. Reject every curse before it even lands. Return it not in hate, but in truth. That's not my portion. That doesn't belong to me. I walk in divine alignment. And as you do, you'll feel the weight lift. You'll feel the attacks dissolve. Because light always neutralizes darkness without ever having to become it. You are divinely protected, not just from swords, but from sentences, from the arrows of the tongue, from the daggers of gossip, from the poison of slander. Not because you're perfect, but because you're purposeful. And God covers purpose, like a mother covers her child in a storm. Fiercely, fully, faithfully, let them speak. Let them whisper. Let them cast their shadows. You don't need to chase their words. You just need to keep walking. Because with every step you take in truth, you render their curses useless. You were never the victim of their words. You were always the proof that truth outlasts every lie. There's a spiritual law that governs the words we speak, a law older than the earth itself. And it doesn't operate on emotion, reputation, or what seems fair. It operates on truth, on energy, on alignment. This law is simple. Chosen one, what you sow, you reap. But in the realm of spirit, the reaping is never one-to-one. It multiplies. It magnifies. So when someone curses you with their mouth, know this: it is never just words. It is a spiritual transaction. And eventually, the invoice is due. Every lie they spoke about you is now walking back into their life in the form of confusion. Every slanderous word becoming instability. Every gossip-fueled conversation turning into closed doors and strange misfortunes. Not because you asked for vengeance, you didn't. Not because you prayed for them to fail, you didn't. But because they spoke death where God had declared life, and no lie can stand long against divine truth. So the storm they sent out, it found its way home. It's wild to watch, isn't it? The same ones who had so much to say, now struggling in silence. Some of them are trying to figure out what went wrong, trying to pin it on circumstances. But deep down, their spirit knows. The words they released came with energy. Energy doesn't vanish, it returns. And what they sent out with fire is now burning their own fields. They never expected that, but heaven did. God allowed their mouths to move so that their hearts could be revealed. That's how justice works in the spirit. It doesn't just punish behavior, it exposes root intentions. And chosen one, you were the mirror. Your life, your presence, your unwavering light showed them what was really in their hearts. And when that reflection made them uncomfortable, they reacted not with healing, but with harm. They used their words to try to break what only God could build. They forgot that your story wasn't authored by them, that your path was paved long before they ever laid eyes on you. They thought they could delay it, distract it, distort it. But divine destiny doesn't bend for human bitterness. And what they tried to bury, heaven raised higher. You see it now, you feel it, the shift, the turning of the tide. That thing you couldn't explain a few years ago. The closed doors, the false accusations, the betrayals, they were all connected to this moment, this revealing, this divine return. You're not just surviving. Chosen one. You're being vindicated. And not in a loud, dramatic way. No. Divine vindication is quiet. It's graceful. It doesn't announce itself with rage, it reveals itself with results. You don't have to tell anyone who lied. They're watching your life and realizing their words held no power. Your rise is louder than any rumor. Your peace more potent than their poison. And that peace, it's your confirmation. They're choking now, not on physical breath, but on spiritual consequence. Choking on guilt, on regret, on the heavy reality that they spoke too soon, too carelessly, too venomously against someone marked by God. And now, the return is undeniable. Their words are echoing back to them in circumstances, in relationships falling apart, in missed opportunities, in the weight of knowing. They were wrong, but even in this, you're called to higher ground. You don't rejoice in their fall, you rise in your purpose. You don't mock their pain, you walk in grace, because you know what they didn't, that every word spoken carries weight. And you were never trying to prove your value through retaliation. You were waiting on God's timing. And now, it's here. This is why you had to keep your heart clean. Why you couldn't respond with the same bitterness. Why you had to cry it out, pray it out, release it. Because had you returned their curses with curses, you would have stepped out of divine covering and into their chaos. But you didn't. You stayed in alignment. And because of that, the law of return didn't just protect you, it favored you. Understand this. Chosen one, when someone curses you unjustly, they are not cursing a person. They are cursing purpose. They are resisting the will of God, often unknowingly. That's why it backfires. Because the universe, the spiritual order, divine timing, it all bends toward truth, not perception. And when perception becomes deception, consequences follow. You're walking proof of what happens when favor overrides falsehood. You've watched as the lies faded and the truth stood. As the attacks came, but none destroyed. As the words flew, but none landed. And through it all, you kept rising. Because you weren't just protected, you were preserved. By design. For such a time as this, this is your season of seeing the return. Of watching what was said in the dark become exposed by the light. Of watching those who cursed you confront the echo of their own words. And it's not to harm them, it's to awaken them. Whether they learn from it is their choice. Your responsibility is to keep walking, keep glowing, keep building. They thought their words had final say. But what they didn't know is your story was never up for debate. It was written in a language they couldn't speak, a divine language, one of resilience, of purpose, of sacred fire. So let them choke, not because you wish it, but because truth always rises, and lies always suffocate under their own weight. You didn't have to respond. Your results did, your elevation did, your glow did. And now the silence speaks volumes. They curse the chosen. And now they're being reminded, you don't curse what God has crowned. There's something sacred about the way God lets things play out. How he lets the whispers run wild, how he allows the slander to spread, how he permits people to speak your name with dirt on their tongue while he remains quiet. And you wondered, didn't you? Chosen one. You asked in the secret place, why is this happening? Why isn't God stopping them? But now you know. God let them speak first, so he could reveal the truth after. Because when God responds, there is no confusion. No doubt, no room left for debate. He doesn't just defend you, he demonstrates who you are. And when that demonstration begins, even your enemies are forced into silence. You were never forgotten, never forsaken, even when it felt like heaven had gone quiet. That silence wasn't abandonment, it was strategy. Because when you carry divine assignment, timing matters more than comfort. And God will sometimes allow people to reveal their own heart before he elevates you, not to harm you, but to protect you from carrying wrong spirits into your next level. Let that sink in. Some of the people who cursed you were being allowed to reveal themselves. So when the blessings showed up, when your table was prepared in front of them, there'd be no mistake, no pretending, no false loyalties. The wheat had to be separated from the chaff. And the only way to do that was to let the wind blow. You were never being punished, you were being positioned. And those who used their mouths to tear you down were unknowingly participating in your purification. They were part of your preparation. Because their words, they forced you into solitude. They pushed you deeper into the presence of God. They made you question everything, and in that questioning, you found your true voice. And here's what's even more powerful. They underestimated how quiet obedience speaks. While they were shouting lies, you were walking in truth. While they were building narratives, you were building character. And while they played small games, you were playing the long game spiritual legacy, not just reputation. You let the storm pass while you stood still. knowing that a storm can't shake a house built on purpose. God let them speak because He was setting the stage. He knew that every false word would eventually collapse under the weight of your fruit. You see, when people speak against you, they create expectations, negative ones. They tell others to look for your failure, your flaws, your fall. But when those people look, and instead they see growth, light, strength, and favor, that's when the tables turn. Because fruit doesn't lie. You don't have to beg people to believe in you when your life bears fruit. When your spirit remains clean. When your energy continues to speak louder than their noise. And the same mouths that said you wouldn't make it are now silent in the face of your persistence. God let them speak, so the contrast would be undeniable. He wanted the testimony to carry weight. Not just they were blessed, but they were spoken against, dragged, lied on, and still rose. That's divine storytelling. That's how God writes His chosen ones into history. Not as victims, but as vessels. Not as loud performers, but as quiet conquerors. And let's not forget, chosen one. The pattern is ancient. Moses was doubted. Esther was misunderstood. Joseph was slandered. Even Jesus spoken against by the very people He came to save. Each one experienced betrayal from those closest. Each one was questioned, falsely accused, mocked, gossiped about. But in each case, the opposition only confirmed the assignment. It sharpened the calling. And the silence of God during their testing only made His voice louder when the breakthrough came. That's what you're living through now. You're standing in that sacred space between attack and ascension. The space where God says, "Stand still and watch me work." Not because you're passive, but because you're protected. And what's coming for you now is not revenge, it's recognition. Not by man, but by heaven. That's the moment when the divine says, "This is my chosen one." I let them speak. Now watch what I do. And believe me, they're watching. The same ones who tried to plant seeds of doubt in others about you are watching those seeds turn to dust. The same ones who tried to paint you in a false light are now watching you shine so brightly. They have to shield their eyes. Not because you gloated, not because you got even, but because you stayed the course. You let your light do the talking. And now their words are powerless in comparison. God let them speak so that you wouldn't have to. So you wouldn't waste time trying to clear your name in every room. So you wouldn't get caught up in earthly drama when you're called to heavenly dimensions. So your rise would be undeniable, and your silence would become sacred, because you've got better things to do. Chosen one. You've got lives to touch, vibrations to raise, kingdoms to build. You can't keep explaining your purpose to people who were never meant to understand it. Let them talk. Let them twist. Let them drown in their own bitterness. You've got a throne to sit on. And from that throne, peace will speak louder than revenge ever could. So breathe. You're not late. You're not forgotten. The plan hasn't fallen apart, it's unfolding. In divine time, in divine order. And every word they spoke that tried to block you is now being used to bless you. Because heaven doesn't waste anything. Not even the curses. Even when you didn't feel it. Chosen one, you were protected. Not just from danger you could see, but from spiritual attacks you couldn't even name. They hurled words like weapons, but the arrows couldn't penetrate. They sat in circles, casting doubt, planning lies, hoping their energy would stick to your spirit. But it never did. Because before they even opened their mouths, God had already drawn a circle of fire around you. You've wondered, haven't you, how you made it out of some of those seasons? How you kept your mind when it felt like everything and everyone was coming at you? You've stared at the ceiling at night, replaying conversations, questioning yourself, feeling like maybe, just maybe, you were losing grip. That wasn't weakness. That was spiritual warfare. And it wasn't your imagination, and it was confirmation that the battle wasn't against flesh and blood. It was against principalities, against envy, against the spirit of accusation. But you didn't break. You might have cried. Yes. You might have wanted to quit. But something stronger held you. Something invisible. Something divine. That was your covering. That was your anointing. Because chosen ones don't just have favor, they have protection. And that protection doesn't always stop the attack from coming, but it guarantees the attack won't prosper. Think about it. How many times did the words come flying, but never land? How many rumors died before they reached the ears they were aimed at? How many plans were plotted, only to collapse without explanation? That wasn't coincidence. That was the hand of God deflecting what was never meant for you. And it goes even deeper. Some of the people you loved the most, the ones you opened your heart to, they turned, they changed. Their words cut deep. Their presence became painful. But even in that, you were being shielded. God knew their hearts long before you did. He heard the conversations you weren't in. He saw the energy behind their smiles. And instead of letting you walk blindly into betrayal, he allowed it to surface. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it felt like abandonment. But the exposure was protection in disguise. Because he wasn't just protecting your emotions, he was protecting your future. There are levels to your purpose that require purity of spirit, clarity of heart, and alignment of energy. And some people, they just couldn't go with you. Their words weren't just toxic, they were treacherous. And God removed them, sometimes violently, sometimes silently, but always perfectly. You were never alone. Even when you felt surrounded. Even when you thought your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling. Even when it seemed like the attacks kept coming unchecked. The truth is, you were in a spiritual womb, covered, guarded, hidden in plain sight. And the reason you didn't retaliate is because your spirit knew the battle wasn't yours. That's why you couldn't bring yourself to fight back in the flesh. That restraint wasn't fear, it was divine wisdom. And look at you now. Still standing. Still chosen. Still growing. Still glowing. You've walked through slander, misunderstanding, betrayal, and came out refined, sharpened, stronger than they ever expected. They thought you'd crumble. They thought you'd lash out. But you responded with elevation. And that response confused them more than anything else. Because spiritual protection doesn't always look like angels swinging swords. Sometimes, it looks like peace in the middle of chaos, like joy that doesn't make sense, like growth in barren places. That's your story. You've grown in places they tried to dry out with curses. You've thrived in environments where others suffocated. You've built resilience in the middle of rejection. And it's not because you're better. It's because you're covered. Your protection isn't always visible, but it's undeniable. It shows up in how you keep getting up, in how you keep showing love, in how you remain anchored while others are tossed in confusion. And this protection, it isn't just defensive, it's prophetic. It's a sign that your life carries weight, that your mission has momentum, that your presence is needed in rooms where truth has gone silent, that your voice will be the sound that breaks generational patterns. You weren't spared for comfort, you were spared for impact. And what they don't understand is this: the more they attack you, the more your anointing grows. The more they try to tear you down, the more heaven builds you up. Because when you're chosen, opposition is confirmation. Every curse becomes compost. Every slander becomes soil. And from that soil, your next level is about to bloom. That's why you've got to keep your posture. Stay grounded. Don't let their words move you. Don't let their silence confuse you. Don't let their bitterness rub off on you. Because you're walking through territory that's been prepared for you. And no amount of word curses can block a door opened by divine decree. They may have cursed your name, but they didn't realize that every curse sharpened your calling. They didn't know that speaking against you actually pushed you deeper into your destiny. They thought their rejection would break you, but it made you bold. They assumed their silence would weaken you, but it taught you how to hear God more clearly. And now you move differently, with authority, with discernment, with grace that cannot be faked. So let this be your reminder: those curses they whispered didn't define you. They revealed you. They revealed your strength, your resilience, your spiritual insight. And most of all, they revealed your protection. Because there is no way you could have survived what you've been through without divine covering. Chosen one, you were shielded for a reason. Guarded by grace, surrounded by angels. And now, as the dust settles, it's becoming clear you were never unprotected. You were preserved. Now the reckoning begins. Not by your hand, not through your voice, but through the unshakable laws of the Spirit. The same mouths that once cursed you, mocked you, doubted you, gossiped about you are now tasting the bitter fruit of their own harvest. They never thought their words would matter. They thought their whispers were weightless. But words are seeds, and every seed finds soil. And what they sowed into the atmosphere is now blossoming into consequence. You're seeing it, aren't you? The ones who were once so vocal, now so quiet. The ones who boasted in your downfall, now choking on their silence. Not because you demanded justice, but because heaven already declared it. Their words didn't just touch your name, they touched a divine assignment. And every time someone curses a mission that belongs to God, the entire spiritual realm responds. This is what divine reversal looks like. It's not loud. It's not petty. It's poetic. Those who dug a pit for you are falling into it themselves. Not because you pushed, but because the law of return cannot be undone. They spoke destruction, and now their own plans are unraveling. They wove lies with their tongues, and now they're entangled in their own web. That's what happens when you come against a chosen one in spirit, thinking you're just battling a person. No. You were never just a person. You are a vessel, an instrument, a walking altar of light, chosen one. Hear this, it's not about vengeance. It's about revelation. What's happening to them now isn't just karma, it's clarity. It's the mirror finally reflecting back what they projected. And when a person finally sees the damage their words caused, it either humbles them or it haunts them. And right now, some of them are being haunted, not by your retaliation, but by their own guilt, their own conscience, the realization that everything they said, everything they did, it didn't stop you. It only elevated you. You've become the proof, not just of survival, but of spiritual justice, of divine preservation. They're looking at you now and realizing you didn't need to defend yourself because heaven already had the final word. Every slanderous sentence they crafted is now echoing back in a frequency they can't escape. Their lies too loud to ignore, their guilt too heavy to carry, and their silence now, it speaks louder than all their past noise combined. Some will pretend like nothing happened. Others will avoid you altogether. A few might even come forward stuttering apologies dressed in half-truths. But regardless of their reaction, the truth remains their curses failed. Not just because you were strong, but because you were covered. Because your path was never theirs to approve. And now, in the glow of your resilience, they're forced to confront what they did. This is where it gets spiritual. Because the same God who allowed them to speak in ignorance is now allowing them to learn through experience. And experience is a ruthless teacher. It doesn't sugarcoat. It doesn't hold hands. It simply shows you clearly what you refused to see before. And for those who cursed you, that experience is unfolding in real time. Financial delays, broken relationships, mental unrest, dreams that dry up before they ever take root. They thought it was just bad luck. But in the spirit, it's the echo of what they released into your atmosphere. But listen carefully. Chosen one. You don't celebrate their fall. You don't gloat over their pain. You've ascended too high to feed on that kind of energy. You let God handle it. You stay in your lane, focused, grateful, still glowing, because their fall is not your victory. Your elevation is. Your peace is. Your continued growth, that's the celebration. That's the proof that the curse didn't cling, that their words couldn't alter what was divinely ordained. And don't be surprised if they try to return. Some of them will feel the pull to reconnect, not because they love you, but because they sense your glow and want to stand in its warmth again. Be discerning. Forgiveness doesn't require access. You can release them from your spirit without re-inviting their energy into your life. God didn't reveal them so you could entertain them again. He revealed them so you could release them for good. What's happening now is bigger than personal drama. It's spiritual authority being enforced. It's divine justice playing out in plain sight. And you, chosen one, are walking in the fulfillment of every promise made in the hidden place. God said He would prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. And now, the table is set. But the food on your table isn't just provision, it's peace, it's clarity, it's wisdom. It's the calm that comes when you no longer have to explain yourself, the strength that grows when you know who you are, without needing confirmation from the same mouths that once tore you down. You've outgrown the noise, you've surpassed the slander, and now you walk in silence that roars louder than their curses ever could. Let them choke. Chosen one, not out of cruelty but out of consequence. Let them feel the weight of what they released. Not because you wish harm, but because only then will they understand the power of a tongue that touches the anointed. And let that understanding change them if they're willing. Because this isn't just about what they did to you. It's about what they need to heal within themselves. You've become a mirror, a reflection of what's possible when someone walks in truth, despite the attack. And that mirror is now forcing those who cursed you to see their own face clearly. What they do with that reflection is between them and God. As for you, you keep glowing, you keep rising, you keep moving in purpose, because the story isn't just that they cursed you, it's that they cursed you, and you still rose. It was never really about them. Chosen one. It was always about you, your growth, your ascension, your spiritual maturity. The curses, the gossip, the slander, they were simply tools used to refine your spirit, to draw out your discernment, to carve the edges of your calling with clarity and conviction. What they spoke over you didn't define you, it activated you. It pulled something out of you that you didn't even know you were carrying. Now here you are, wiser, lighter, bolder, and all without ever having to match their energy. You didn't have to curse back. You didn't have to defend yourself in every room. You didn't need to stoop to the level of those who only understand warfare through words. You understood something higher. That spiritual authority isn't shown through retaliation, it's revealed through resilience. And your resilience has now become their revelation, because they're seeing it. Your consistency, your peace, your quiet confidence, the way your energy refuses to shrink. Even after everything they tried, you've become undeniable. The same ones who once hoped you'd crumble are now witnessing your confirmation. They're seeing that you were never the villain. You were never the one to fear. You were the light misunderstood, misread, and mishandled, but never extinguished. And now the tables have turned. But not in some theatrical, vengeful display. No. The turn is subtle. It's spiritual. It's in how they flinch when your name comes up, unsure of how to respond. It's in how they scroll past your success with silence, unwilling to admit they were wrong. It's in the ache that follows them when they realize the one they cursed was the one sent to bless the space they were in. You've become living proof that no matter how fierce the attack, no matter how sharp the tongue, what is covered by God cannot be corrupted. They tried to assassinate your character, but your character assassinated their lies. They tried to darken your light with their shadows, but your glow became a spotlight, revealing everything they hoped to keep hidden. And now, you walk with new authority, not loud, not proud, but steady, unshakable, clear. Because once you've walked through the fire of false accusations and come out with your peace intact, there's nothing left to fear. You've seen the worst people can do, and you've seen that it couldn't stop you, couldn't block your purpose, couldn't poison your soul. This is the truth you carry now. You were always the proof. The proof that blessings are not man-made, that favor is not a popularity contest, that spiritual protection is real and active. And it's not just for your benefit, it's for the benefit of everyone who ever questioned whether the chosen ones really existed. You exist. You stand. You rise. And every time you do, the heavens roar in confirmation. So what now? Now you walk in even greater purpose. Now you step into your next level with your head held high. Not in pride, but in gratitude. Gratitude that you didn't let the curses corrupt your character. Gratitude that you didn't allow bitterness to build a home in your heart. Gratitude that through it all, you stayed in alignment. And as you move forward, You move with deeper discernment. Because now you know everyone who claps for you doesn't carry good intentions. Everyone who smiles isn't sincere. But that's not a reason to shrink. That's just a reminder to stay spiritually covered, spiritually aware, spiritually guarded. You don't live in fear, you live in truth. And truth always makes the right people draw near, and the wrong ones disappear. This is your time, chosen one, to rise without apology, to shine without shrinking, to speak when the Spirit moves you, and to stay silent when peace speaks louder. You've earned this moment, not because you fought dirty, but because you endured with dignity. They cursed you, and now they're facing what they spoke. But you're walking in what God promised. Breathe deep now, chosen one. Let your shoulders relax. Let your heart settle. Let your soul remember that it is protected not by accident, but by design. You have walked through fire and come out golden. You have been misnamed, misunderstood, and mislabeled. And yet you remain, not diminished, but defined. Not broken, but built. You are no longer in the space of proving. You are in the space of being. You carry a divine frequency, a sacred vibration that cannot be mimicked or manipulated. And though the world may not understand it, heaven has already confirmed it. Your steps are ordered. Your words are blessed. Your energy is pure. And every false tongue that rose against you is now silenced, not because you fought, but because truth cannot be hidden forever. Let the weight of their curses fall away now. Release the energy of the old attacks. You don't need it. You never did. What's coming for you now is clarity, is peace, is divine restoration. The kind that builds without explanation and blesses without apology. So rest in this knowing. You are sealed. You are safe. You are seen by the eyes that matter most. God is not just watching over you. He's walking with you, ahead of you, surrounding you on all sides. Let your light shine without hesitation. Let your purpose unfold without interference. Let your heart remain open, but your spirit guarded. And if this word resonated deep in your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it, declare it. Let the other chosen ones know they're not alone. Until next time, stay aligned, stay protected, and stay anointed. God bless you.